For decades, we've been told that memory loss is just a normal part of aging, that forgetting where you put your keys or struggling to remember a name is simply what happens as we get older. But groundbreaking research is revealing a startling truth. There's a specific sign that can predict Alzheimer's disease up to 10 years before any official diagnosis is made. This isn't about occasional forgetfulness or senior moments. This is about a subtle but measurable change that's happening in your brain right now, and most people have no idea it's occurring. What I'm about to share with you could fundamentally change how we approach brain health and early intervention. Because while we can't yet cure Alzheimer's, we now know that the earlier we catch these changes, the more we can do to slow their progression and maintain cognitive function for years longer than previously thought possible. The sign I'm referring to isn't what you might expect. It's not forgetting appointments or misplacing objects. It's not even difficulty with complex tasks or getting lost in familiar places. Those symptoms, while concerning, typically appear much later in the disease process. The early warning sign that researchers have identified occurs in the realm of language, specifically in how we process and retrieve words. This phenomenon is called semantic fluency decline, and it represents one of the earliest detectable changes in cognitive function that predicts Alzheimer's development. Semantic fluency refers to your brain's ability to quickly access and retrieve words from specific categories. When researchers test this, they might ask someone to name as many animals as possible in 60 seconds, or to list all the fruits they can think of in a minute. In healthy aging, this ability remains relatively stable. You might slow down slightly, but the overall capacity stays intact. However, in individuals who will later develop Alzheimer's, this specific cognitive function begins to deteriorate years before any other symptoms become apparent. The decline is subtle at first, so gradual that neither the individual nor their family members typically notice it in daily conversation. The reason this happens relates to how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain at the cellular level. The condition doesn't begin with the dramatic memory loss that most people associate with it. Instead, it starts with the accumulation of specific proteins in brain tissue, particularly beta-amyloid plaques and tau tangles. These proteins begin depositing in the brain decades before clinical symptoms appear, and they initially target very specific brain regions. One of the first areas affected is the temporal lobe, particularly regions involved in semantic memory and language processing. Semantic memory is your brain's library of general knowledge about the world. It's what allows you to know that a robin is a bird, that Paris is the capital of France, or that ice is cold. This type of memory is distinct from episodic memory, which involves recalling specific personal experiences. When semantic memory systems begin to dysfunction, the first changes appear in how quickly and efficiently you can access stored word knowledge. This isn't about forgetting what words mean entirely, at least not initially. Instead, it's about the speed and ease with which your brain can find and retrieve those words when you need them. Research conducted at major medical centers has followed thousands of individuals over extended periods, testing their cognitive abilities annually. What these studies have consistently found is that people who will later develop Alzheimer's show measurable declines in semantic fluency tasks years before meeting diagnostic criteria for mild cognitive impairment or dementia. In practical terms, this means that while a healthy 70-year-old might be able to name 25 animals in 60 seconds, someone in the preclinical stages of Alzheimer's might only manage 18 or 19. The difference seems small, almost insignificant, but it represents a meaningful change in brain function that can be measured and tracked over time. The decline isn't random or inconsistent. It follows predictable patterns that researchers have now mapped extensively. Typically, the ability to generate words from semantic categories begins to slow first. This is followed by a gradual reduction in the total number of words that can be accessed within time limits. Eventually, there may be subtle changes in the accuracy of categorization, though this occurs much later in the disease process. What makes this discovery so significant is its potential for early intervention. Current Alzheimer's treatments are most effective when started as early as possible in the disease process. However, by the time most people receive a diagnosis, substantial brain changes have already occurred. If we can identify individuals at risk a decade before symptoms become obvious, we have a much larger window for intervention. The testing itself is remarkably simple and non-invasive. Unlike brain scans or spinal taps, semantic fluency testing requires no special equipment or medical procedures. A trained healthcare provider can administer these tests in a standard office setting in just a few minutes. The tests involve asking individuals to generate as many words as possible from specific categories within set time limits. Beyond animal naming, researchers test fluency across various semantic categories. They might ask for types of food, household items, clothing, or occupations. They also test what's called phonemic fluency, which involves generating words that begin with specific letters. Interestingly, phonemic fluency tends to remain more stable in early Alzheimer's changes, while semantic fluency shows earlier decline. The reason semantic fluency is more vulnerable relates to how these different types of word retrieval are organized in the brain. Semantic fluency requires accessing conceptual knowledge networks, understanding relationships between concepts, and efficiently searching through organized memory stores. Phonemic fluency, while still complex, relies more on sound-based organization and may use different neural pathways that are less affected in early Alzheimer's. Understanding this distinction has led to more sophisticated testing protocols. Rather than just looking at overall performance, researchers now examine the pattern of responses. They analyze not just how many words someone can generate, but also the clustering and switching patterns within their responses. Healthy individuals tend to generate words in clusters, for example, naming several farm animals, then switching to pets, then to wild animals. They also maintain this organizational strategy consistently over time. People in preclinical stages of Alzheimer's show more subtle changes in these organizational patterns. They might generate fewer words within each cluster before switching to a new subcategory. They might also show less efficient switching between different conceptual groups. These pattern changes can be detected even when total word counts remain within normal ranges. The implications extend beyond just early detection. This research has revealed important insights about how Alzheimer's disease progresses and what brain systems are most vulnerable in the earliest stages. This knowledge is informing the development of new therapeutic approaches that target the specific neural networks involved in semantic memory and language processing. Current research is exploring whether targeted cognitive training focusing on semantic fluency can help maintain function in individuals showing early decline. Some studies suggest that regular practice with category fluency tasks, combined with other cognitive exercises, may help preserve semantic memory networks for longer periods. The lifestyle factors that support overall brain health appear to be particularly important for maintaining semantic fluency. Regular physical exercise has been shown to support the brain regions involved in semantic memory. Cardiovascular health directly impacts the efficiency of these neural networks, as they require robust blood flow to function optimally. Social engagement plays a crucial role as well. Conversation and social interaction naturally exercise semantic fluency skills. People who maintain active social lives tend to preserve these abilities longer than those who become isolated. This isn't just correlation. The act of retrieving words and concepts during conversation provides exactly the type of cognitive stimulation that supports semantic memory networks. Reading, Particularly reading diverse materials that expose you to varied vocabulary and concepts also support semantic fluency. The brain's semantic networks are strengthened through regular use and exposure to language. Crossword puzzles, word games, and vocabulary-building activities can provide additional support for these systems. Sleep quality emerges as another critical factor. The brain's ability to maintain and organize semantic knowledge networks depends on adequate rest. During sleep, the brain consolidates memories and clears metabolic waste products. Poor sleep quality interferes with both of these processes, potentially accelerating the decline in semantic fluency. Nutrition plays a supporting role in maintaining the brain systems involved in semantic memory. The Mediterranean diet, rich in omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds, has been associated with better preservation of cognitive function, including semantic fluency. These nutrients support the cellular health of neurons involved in language and memory processing. Managing chronic inflammation is particularly important for protecting semantic memory networks. Chronic inflammatory conditions can accelerate cognitive decline and may specifically impact the brain regions involved in semantic fluency. This includes managing conditions like diabetes, hypertension, and autoimmune disorders that can create systemic inflammation. The stress hormone cortisol, when chronically elevated, can damage the brain regions involved in semantic memory. Chronic stress management through techniques like meditation, regular exercise, and adequate sleep becomes essential for preserving these cognitive abilities. The connection isn't just theoretical. Studies have shown measurable improvements in semantic fluency following stress reduction interventions. What makes this research particularly hopeful is that semantic fluency decline, while predictive of future Alzheimer's development, isn't necessarily inevitable or irreversible in the earliest stages. Some individuals who show initial decline can stabilize or even improve with appropriate interventions. This suggests that the changes happening in the brain during this preclinical period may still be modifiable. The key is early recognition and action. If you notice that you're having more difficulty than usual coming up with words during conversations, or if you find yourself struggling more with word games or puzzles that used to be easy, these could be worth discussing with your healthcare provider. While many factors can affect word retrieval, persistent changes warrant evaluation. It's important to distinguish between normal aging changes and potentially concerning decline. Everyone experiences occasional tip-of-the-tongue moments or temporary difficulty finding specific words, especially when tired or stressed. The changes associated with preclinical Alzheimer's are more consistent and represent a departure from your personal baseline rather than isolated incidents. Healthcare providers are increasingly incorporating semantic fluency testing into routine cognitive assessments for older adults. This testing can establish a baseline against which future performance can be compared. Regular monitoring allows for the detection of changes over time, which is more meaningful than any single test result. The emotional impact of learning about potential cognitive changes cannot be overlooked. While knowledge can be empowering, it can also create anxiety. The key is focusing on what can be controlled and influenced rather than worrying about uncertain future outcomes. The same lifestyle factors that support overall health also support brain health and may help preserve cognitive function longer. Family members can play an important supportive role by engaging in activities that naturally exercise semantic fluency. Playing word games together, having discussions about various topics, and encouraging social activities all provide cognitive stimulation in enjoyable formats. The goal isn't to create pressure or anxiety, but to incorporate brain-healthy activities into regular routines. The research on early Alzheimer's detection continues to evolve rapidly. Scientists are working to refine testing protocols, identify additional early markers, and develop more precise predictions about individual risk. They're also investigating how semantic fluency changes interact with other early indicators to provide more comprehensive risk assessment. Emerging technologies may soon allow for even earlier and more precise detection. Smartphone apps that can monitor subtle changes in speech patterns and word use during normal conversation are being developed. These tools could potentially detect changes even before formal testing reveals problems, providing unprecedented early warning capabilities. The ultimate goal isn't to create fear or anxiety about cognitive aging, but to provide hope and actionable information. For the first time in human history, we're developing the ability to see Alzheimer's disease coming years before it significantly impacts daily life. This unprecedented window of opportunity allows for intervention strategies that were never before possible. While we cannot yet prevent Alzheimer's disease entirely, we can potentially delay its onset and slow its progression. Every year of maintained cognitive function represents preserved independence, continued relationships, and sustained quality of life. The difference between developing significant symptoms at 75 versus 85 is enormous in terms of life impact. This knowledge also provides hope for future treatments. Pharmaceutical companies are developing drugs specifically designed to target the earliest stages of Alzheimer's disease. Having reliable methods to identify people in these early stages is essential for testing these new treatments and determining their effectiveness. The discovery that semantic fluency decline can predict Alzheimer's disease a decade before diagnosis represents a fundamental shift in how we understand and approach cognitive aging. It moves us from a reactive model, where we wait for symptoms to become obvious, to a proactive approach where we can identify and address changes before they significantly impact daily life. This research reminds us that the brain, like other organs, changes gradually over time, and these changes can often be detected and influenced before they become severe. By paying attention to subtle changes in our cognitive abilities, particularly in areas like word retrieval and semantic fluency, we can take action to support our brain health while we still have the greatest opportunity to make a difference. The message here isn't one of inevitability or doom, but of empowerment and possibility. For the first time, we have tools to peer into the future of cognitive health and potentially alter its course. While aging remains a natural process, we're discovering that how we age, particularly cognitively, is far more within our influence than previously believed. The early detection of semantic fluency decline offers hope that we can maintain our cognitive abilities longer, preserve our independence further into later life, and continue to engage meaningfully with the world around us. This represents not just a medical breakthrough, but a fundamental shift toward more proactive and preventive approaches to brain health throughout the aging process.